اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المكرمين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Mujadala, verse number 11, يَرْفَعُ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Almighty Allah will exalt those who believe amongst you and those who have knowledge to high ranks. Scholars and ulama have a high rank or hold a high status in Islam, for they are the inheritors of the Prophet and they are the ones who are loved by the inhabitants of heaven. And we have a hadith that states that the look at the face of an alim is a form of worship, a form of ibadah, because the look towards him reminds us of akhirah. It reminds us of the hereafter. The closest people to the level of prophethood are those people of knowledge and people of struggle. When comparing a scholar to a worshipper, we see that the Holy Prophet ﷺ say that the sleep of a scholar is greater and more valuable than a sleep of the worshipper. O Ali, a 2 rak'ah of prayer that is made by a scholar is more valuable than 70 rak'ah that is made by a worshipper. In another hadith by our 5th Imam, Muhammad al-Baqir, alayhi salatu wassalam, he states that a scholar whose knowledge is used is greater than the worship of 70,000 worshippers. So in other words, a scholar is not only beneficial, he does not only benefit himself, his knowledge is made available to others so that others can also benefit, so that others can also be guided with the knowledge that he has. On the contrary, the prayer, the fasting, the good deeds of the worshipper would only benefit the worshipper. It will not benefit those who are around him. Basically, the salah that he does, it will benefit him. The fasting that he will do, it will benefit him specifically. The Hajj that he does, it's good for himself. So it is based on this that the Imams have explained that the status of scholars whose knowledge is used or is beneficial is greater than the worship of the worshippers. When Satan circulates and introduces his false innovations amongst people, it is the scholar who usually stands forth and enlightens people and informs people about the whispers of shaitan and the deviations and the misconceptions that are being introduced. He warns people about it. On the other hand, the one who performs worship is preoccupied with his ibadah, with his salah, with his du'as and a'mal and so on and so forth. So he would not recognize the false and the immoral deviations and misconceptions and innovations that were introduced by Satan and his team. And for the same reason, he would not warn people about it. So, respect for scholars is also highly encouraged in Islam, to the extent that our 6th Imam, Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, said, respecting a scholar makes Allah happy, and disrespecting him would cause Allah's displeasure. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, when you see a scholar, accompany him. So this is the great status of scholars and ulama in Islam. However, what is unfortunate is that we're seeing some of our brothers and sisters from the local and the global Shia community. We notice that there are people who abuse, who insult, who humiliate, who accuse ulama of all kinds of things. And all these things are major sins if it is done against a regular mu'min. You know, humiliation and accusation and insults and abuse and so on and so forth. These are some of the dhunub al-kabira, some of the major sins if it's done against any regular mu'min. So imagine it being done against scholars and ulama, how big of a sin it is. As you know, the status of an alim whose knowledge is used is greater than the worship of 70,000 worshippers. So it is a serious crime that Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam himself have warned us about when he says that سيأتي زمان على الناس يفرون من العالم كما يفر الغنم من الذئب ابتلاهم الله تعالى بثلاثة أشياء. There will come a time where people will run away from ulama, just how goats run away from a wolf. When that happens, Allah will trial those people with three things. What are these three things? Rasulullah says, الأول يرفع البركة من أموالهم. The first thing is, blessings will go away from wealth. Maybe a person makes money, by the end of the month, this money is gone. How did it go? There is no blessing in the money. They won't see the benefit of it. It won't create happiness and joy for them. Why? Because blessings has been taken away from wealth. وَالثَّانِي سَلَّطَ عَلَيْهِمْ سُلْطَانًا جَائِرًا. An unjust, tyrant, oppressive ruler will rule over them. وَالثَّالِث يَخْرُجُونَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا بِلَا إِيمَانٍ. They will depart from this world without having faith, without having iman. Meaning that they will lose both their dunya and akhirah. So some of the misconceptions that they try to bring up or spread out with regards to this issue is, why do we need to emulate? Why do we need to follow a non-ma'soom, a non-infallible, immaculate person, when the ahadith and the words and the narrations of the ma'soomin is within hand's reach? The Islamic library is full of it. Now with the online, all these books are available, so anyone can actually access these ahadith of the ma'soomin. So why would I need to go and follow a non-ma'soom, a non-infallible person? And aren't there some narrations and ahadith that condemn the concept of taqleed? Inshallah, the answer to these two misconceptions, we would have to be able to answer them. We need to go through a few points, starting with the story of taqleed, going through the point, who are ruwatul hadith, who are the hadith narrators, and who are the fuqaha, the jurists. And discussing, or did the Ahlul Bayt actually prohibit taqleed in their ahadith? Inshallah, we will touch upon these 2 points after hearing a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So our fifth Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, he was in the holy city of Medina. Maintaining continuous communication with the Imam at that time was something that is difficult. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't possible all the time. It wasn't easy to keep up this constant communication with the Imam. Why? For two main reasons. One reason is the harassment of the authorities at that time. They used to harass the Imam and his movement. So whoever would go and see the Imam would be harassed by the authority at that time. There were spies all over around the Imam house and so on and so forth. So it wasn't easy. They weren't making life easy for the Imam nor for his Shia. The second reason is the geographic spread of the followers of the Imam. They were in Kufa, in Basra, in Qom, in Khurasan, in Egypt, in Yemen. So they were spread in so many countries, in so many cities, in so many areas, and it's not easy to travel and reach and maintain constant communication, especially back then, where travel would take days and weeks and months to be able to reach from one place to another. So with all that, the Imam salawatullahi wasalamu alayhi, he educated a number of his students to support the needs of people for religious fatawa and religious guidance, as well as solving their problems. Ali ibn al-Musayyab, he traveled for about 1,000 kilometers from Qom all the way to Khurasan to meet our 8th Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Ridha alayhi salam. Then he asked the Imam this question. He said, my home is distant. My home is far away. And it's not always easy that I can reach you. I can't always come and reach you whenever a question comes to my mind. So whom should I trust to take my religious knowledge from? The Imam salamullahi alayhi immediately answered. He said, Min Zakaria ibn Adam al-Qummi, from Zakaria, son of Adam al-Qummi, al-Ma'moon ala-dini wa-dunya, the one who is reliable and trusted in religious and worldly matters. So the Imam referred Ali ibn al-Musayyab to who? To a scholar in Qom, and he said, go and ask him your questions. Whenever you have a religious question, whenever you need a fatwa, whenever you need any religious concern, go to Zakaria ibn Adam al-Qummi and he will respond. Ali ibn al-Musayyab said that when I returned to Qom, I always asked Zakaria ibn Adam for all of my needs. Shu'ayb al-Aqarquqi, he came to our 6th Imam, Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. And he also said that sometimes I need to ask on certain religious matters and I cannot reach you. So whom should I ask? The Imam immediately said, Alayka bil-Asdi. Go and ask Al-Asadi, meaning Abu Basir Al-Asadi. Go and ask him. Whenever you have a religious question, go and ask him. Another companion, Abdullah ibn Abi Ya'fur, he once came to the Imam and asked that sometimes some of our companions, meaning other Shias, would come and ask me certain questions that I do not have the answer to, or I don't know the answer, and I'm not able to reach you. So what do I do in this circumstance? The Imam said, ما يمنعك عن محمد ابن مسلم الثقفي. What prevents you from going to Muhammad, son of Muslim al-Thaqafi? Go and ask him. فإنه سمع من أبي وكان عنده وجيها. Because he heard from my father and he was a notable person. When the Imam said سمع من أبي, it's not like he listened to a lecture and that's it. سمع من أبي means he studied under my father and he was considered a notable person in the eyes of his father, Imam Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam. Someone who is notable in the eyes of Imam al-Baqir, meaning he's also notable in the eyes of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. So the Imam is saying that this companion, Muhammad ibn Muslim, has studied under 2 Imams, Imam al-Baqir and Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. So the Imam referred Abdullah ibn Abi Ya'fur to who? To Muhammad ibn Muslim al-Thaqafi. So referring someone to a specialist, this is something that is normal. It's quite natural. Whenever I have an issue that I do not know of or I'm not specialized in, it's normal to go and refer to a specialist. This is something that is logical, common sense. Observe all aspects of your life. You will be able to categorize them in 3 categories. There are things that you do in life without referring to a specialist. When you feel hungry, you'll go eat. Would you need to ask a specialist that if I'm hungry, should I eat or not? No, you'll just go and eat. When you're thirsty, you'll go and drink. You never went and asked someone, oh, should I drink when I'm thirsty? You'll just go and drink. You won't need to refer to a specialist in this manner. You remember your father or mother, and let's say you're away. You're just going to pick up the phone and call them. Did you ask a specialist, should I call or not? No, you do them. These are things that you do in life without referring to a specialist. There are things in life which you avoid also without referring to a specialist. Sleeping in the middle of the street. No one of you does do that. Why? Did you ask specialists that? Is it dangerous or safe? No. It's common sense. You won't sleep in the middle of the street. Eating or drinking poison. You avoid that even though you don't need to go back to a specialist to avoid eating or drinking poison. Harassment and some of the moral sicknesses, you will avoid it without the need of going to specialists. Common sense. And there are things in life which are not quite clear, where you need an expert's or a specialist's point of view. You would need to consult a specialist to see what's his view on these issues. Like, my car breaks down. What should I do? I don't know how to fix a car. I'll go to a specialist. I'll go to the mechanic to fix my car. I get sick and I don't know what's the problem that I have, or what should I do? I go to the specialist, the doctor, to cure my sickness. I need to build a house. I'll go to an engineering firm, to a builder, to a construction company to do that, because they're the specialists in this field. And so on and so forth. This is something that you do in life. The same concept applies with issues in faith. There are certain things that you do and you know it is wajib without the need of consulting an alim, a specialist. You all know that it is wajib to pray 5 times a day. Even non-Muslims know that Muslims have to pray 5 times a day. The general concept of prayer. It's wajib to pray 5 times a day. Everyone knows that it is wajib to fast the month of Ramadan. Everyone knows that Hajj is wajib in Islam. This is something that is common. You don't need to ask a faqih and tell him, is it wajib to pray 5 times a day? Do I have to fast the month of Ramadan? It's common sense. All common knowledge. All Muslims know that. Non-Muslims also know that. There are things that you avoid without the need to ask a faqih. You don't drink wine and you don't eat pork. And you don't need to go to a marja and say, is wine halal or haram? It's no common knowledge. All Muslims, even non-Muslims, know that wine and pork is haram. And you avoid it without the need of asking a specialist. And there are things which are not very clear, where you would have to consult an alim, who's the specialist in that field, to be able to get the answer. For example, exchanging money, buying dinar to $1, for example, halal or haram. Cryptocurrency, e-commerce, detailed ahkam of salah, detailed ahkam of fasting, the detailed ahkam of hajj, and so on and so forth. These issues that might come up that you might not know, is it wajib or haram or not, you would need to consult a faqih to be able to know the view of shara' with regards to it. So just as you do everything in life, there are these 3 matters also apply in faith at the same time. And these things are logical, rational. This is a rational proof. So just as the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam, in their ahadith, they have referred many people to scholars who are non-ma'sumin. Their companions, their students are not ma'sumin, but they referred them. They referred people to them. Also, it is logical. It is something that is rational. So we have textual proof and we have rational proof with regards to this concept, the concept of referring back to an alim, whether he's ma'sum or not. Now, we move on to another question. Who are ruwatul hadith, the hadith narrators? And who are the fuqaha, jurists? In the times of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, the Imams, a group of religious experts were trained to mediate between the people and the Imam salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. Like Zurar ibn A'yan, like Muhammad ibn Muslim, like Abu Basir al-Asadi, like Barid al-Ajli, and so on and so forth, whose role was very significant and was very important at that time, to the extent that our sixth Imam, Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, said about them, Umana'ullahi ala halalihi wa haramih. لولا هؤلاء انقطعت آثار النبوة. They are Allah's trusted ones in His rulings. The Imam is praising these students. He's saying they are Allah's trusted ones in His rulings. Were it not for them, the traces of prophethood would have been cut off and vanished. The Imam is praising a group of students, saying that if it wasn't for them, the traces of prophethood would have been cut off and vanished. This is how important the role of these students who were trained by the Imam was. The role was very, very important. Moreover, even though our fifth Imam, Muhammad al-Baqir alayhi salam, was in the city of Medina, yet he went to his student Aban ibn Taghlib and said to him, Ya Aban, اجلس في مسجد المدينة وافتي الناس فإني أحب أن يرى في شيعتي مثلك. Go and sit in the mosque in Medina and give fatwa, give fatwa to people, for I like to see amongst my followers people like you. The Imam is in the city of Medina, but again the Imam has many commitments and a lot of work to do. He cannot attend to each and every person's question. So he placed certain students of his who were jurists at that time, like Aban ibn Taghlib, and he told them, you go and sit in the mosque and answer the questions of people. Give fatwa. Don't just answer, just ifti. Give fatwa. And this is something that is common sense. I mean, if each one of you want to ask me a question right now, we won't finish till Fajr. Right? So the Imam, Salamullah alayhi, if everyone wants to go and ask him questions, it will never finish. So he had to let his students go and sit and answer the questions of people, so that people can learn their deen and learn their ahkam and get their fatawa. This group of elite students of the Imam, they are known as ruwatul hadith. They are known as the hadith narrators. Some people imagine, or they're led to do so by some people, that hadith narrators are somehow, they're like voice recorders. Their only role is to transmit the voice of the Imams to the people. And they should never interpret any narration, and they should not derive any religious rule. Yani what they're assuming is Zurara, he should only repeat what he heard from the Imam and let people understand whatever they want to understand from the hadith. He should not say a word. Now this understanding is entirely false. Completely false. And let us return to the book Al-Kafi, the well-known hadith book which is compiled by Shaykh Al-Kulayni. Open up volume 7 of this book. You will see many rulings that are quoted from the hadith narrators themselves without mentioning anything from the Imam. Meaning they were deriving the laws, they were deriving the ahkam from the ahadith without involving the common people in the process of the analysis of the ahadith and so on and so forth. And they would just give them the conclusion the fatwa at the end. And this same system is still active until now. For example, page 83 of volume 7 of Al-Kafi, Shaykh Al-Kulaini dedicates a whole chapter to the fatwa of Yunus ibn Abdul Rahman without narrating any hadith or narration from his teacher and master Imam Ali ibn Musa al-Rida salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayh. And here you don't find Shaykh al-Kulaini complaining, "Oh Yunus, why are you not narrating the hadith of the Imam and you're giving your own view?" He's writing his views down. Page 95 of the same volume, volume 7, Shaykh al-Kulaini dedicates a whole chapter to the fatwa of Fadl ibn Shadhan, who is a student of our 9th Imam, Imam Muhammad al-Jawad alayhi salam, without narrating any hadith from the Imam. If you open up page 92 of this chapter, there is a riwayah from Umar ibn Udayna, where he went and visited Zurar ibn A'yan. Zurar ibn A'yan, one of the elite students of the Imam. So Umar ibn Udayna went to visit Zurar ibn A'yan, and he said, "I have a number of narrations that got mixed up. I don't know which one are reliable ones and which one are not. Which one are the good ones, which one are not good." So he went to Zurara. Zurara, what did he reply? He said, "I will inform you and I will not narrate for you." Meaning, when you have these ahadith mixed up and you don't know what is right from what is wrong, because Ya Umar ibn Udayna, you are not qualified yet, I will give you the conclusion. Just ask me, I will give you the final answer. I will give you the conclusion without involving you in the process of the analysis of the hadith and so on. Because this is a very technical process that requires, many prerequisites for one to be able to reach to that level. So in summary, when we see these ahadith, the hadith narrators, they have two main roles. The ruwat al-hadith, they have two main roles. One role is to transmit the ahadith word for word, preserve this tremendous heritage of the Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamu alayhim, protect the ahadith from loss, from it being lost, and so that it can reach to us today. So that's one of their roles. Their second role is what? To provide religious rules that are needed for the people. So two roles: narrating the hadith, preserving it, protecting this tremendous heritage, and providing laws, answering basically providing religious rules that are needed by the people. Dawood ibn al-Husayn, he once came to our 6th Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam. He said, "I had a question. I asked 2 of your students. Each one of them gave me a different answer." Don't we have this issue nowadays? We follow different ulama, different maraja. They have different views. That happened when? During the time of Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam. So he had the opportunity to go to the Imam to clarify. Now what's interesting is the answer of the Imam. The Imam did not complain. "Oh my God, what's going on? Why are they differing between themselves? Why are scholars not uniting? Why are they differing? Why don't they reach to the same conclusion? Why don't they sit together and, so on and so forth?" Especially when it comes to near the time of Eid, this is where all these sentiments starts coming up and all these discussions, come up. Why is there a difference and so on and so forth? The Imam did not do all that. The Imam did not even answer the question by pointing to the exact answer immediately. You could have just said, this is the answer to your question, and that's it. He gave him a formula. And that formula, we also use it up until today. He said, فَلْيَنْظُرْ إِلَىٰ أَفْقَهِهِمَا وَأَعْلَمِهِمَا بِأَحَادِيثِنَا وَأَوْرَعِهِمَا فَيُنَفِّذْ حُكْمَهُ. Let him take and apply the ruling of the one who is most learned in jurisprudence, the most learned in our ahadith, in our narrations, and the most pious of them. So the Imam told him, just follow this criteria. Who from the companions has these three qualities? Apply his rule. Take his rule. Very simple. Don't we also do the same? When you want to choose your marja, don't we say go and choose the most knowledgeable? Most knowledgeable in what? In this jurisprudence and the hadith. And he has to be adil. What does adil mean? Pious. God weary. He doesn't commit sins. He's afraid from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be able to trust someone with your faith, he needs to be someone who is religious, who does not commit sins, who is afraid from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Imam is telling you, go find someone who is knowledgeable and someone who is God, he fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who is God cautious. And by the way, those who do not like, for the likes of Zurara, to interpret a hadith and explain it to people, they themselves have no right to also interpret a hadith and explain it to people. Why? Because it's unfair that anyone can come and explain a hadith and interpret them. But when you have scholars and ulama like Zurara and Muhammad ibn Muslim, we tell them, no, you're not allowed to interpret and explain a hadith. So it's either no one explains, or if one wants to explain a hadith, then you should allow the alim to also explain. So you see how the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have prepared the society and the community for the time of our 12th Imam, the time of the Imam of our time, so that when the shift happens from the presence of the Imam and to the occultation of the Imam, people are ready. And our 12th Imam, Sahib al-Asr wa Zaman, Ajjallah Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, he also finalized the preparation for the society by referring his followers to the knowledgeable, to those who are knowledgeable in the two aspects, hadith narrations and giving of fatwa. Being able to derive laws and, give a fatwa. So since the year 329 after the Hijrah, which is the year of the occultation, the year of the major occultation, the greater occultation of our Imam, this is when it took place, till now, about 1,117 years have already passed, and the same system is intact as a continuation of the original procedure of narrating a hadith. And this method is fundamental in both of our major houses, in Najaf and Qom. This is the same method that was there at that time. It's still continuing up until today. A cleric does not become a mujtahid unless he achieves, through hard work, the ability to evaluate the narrations and derive religious rules. A religious cleric does not become a mujtahid unless he gets that skill. And he won't get it unless he has to do a lot of hard work and study and so on and so forth. Let me give you an example of how it's still going. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Let me give you the example of one of our scholars. Let's take the example of Grand Ayatollah Sayyid Ali Sistani. May Allah prolong his life. If we want to view his licenses, and you can view it, go on sistani.org under the biography of the Sayyid, you can see the licenses that I'm going to mention right now. They're in the biography. If you review his life as a scholar and you inspect the licenses that he received from his teachers, you can clearly distinguish these two aspects that I have mentioned, which is memorization and narration of hadith, and the ability to derive and deduce religious rules. If you look at the license that he received from his teacher, late Grand Ayatollah Sayyid al-Khoi, He says in the license, وَقَدْ أَجَزْتُهُ أن يروي عني جميع ما صحت لي روايته من الكتب الأربعة الكافي والفقيه والتهذيب والاستبصار. Indeed, I permit him to narrate from me all narrations that I'm able to narrate from the 4 books which we rely on the most, Al-Kafi, Al-Faqih, Al-Tahdhib and Al-Istibsar. And in another part of the same license, you will see that Sayyid Khoi says, أدرك والحمد لله مناه ونال مبتغاه وفاز بالمراد وحاز ملكة الاجتهاد. He, praise be to Allah, has grasped his aim and reached the degree of ijtihad and has gotten the competency to derive rules. In another license from his other teacher, late Ayatollah Shaykh Hassan al-Hilli, he says, وَقَدْ أَجَزْتُ لِجَنَابِهِ أَنْ يَرْوِي عَنِّي مَا صَحَّتْ لِي رِوَايَتُهُ بِأَسَانِيدِ عَنْ مَشَايِخِنَا الْعِظَامِ. I authorize him to narrate from me all the narrations that I'm eligible to narrate by my chain of narrations through my great mentors. And in another part of this same license, Shaykh al-Hilli says, وَقَدْ كَثُرَتْ المذاكرة معه فوجدته بالغا مرتبة الاجتهاد وقادرا على الاستنباط. I have, and due to the numerous discussions that we had, I found him that he had reached the degree of ijtihad and is skilled to derive the religious rules. And the license of his other teacher, late Ayatollah Agha Buzurg al-Tahrani, he also says, قد صرف جل وقته في تحصيل علوم الدين لا سيما مباحث علمي الرجال والحديث أجزته بالرواية عني عن جميع مشايخي بجميع طرقي. He spent most of his time in learning religious knowledge, in particular researches in the subject of rijal, narrators and narrations, hadith. So I permit him to narrate from me by my chain of narration through my mentors. And in another part of the same license, Agha Buzurg al-Tahrani, he says, كما يشهد بسائر مراتبه العلمية وبلوغه رتبة الاجتهاد سائر ما كتبه في الفقه والأصول. Moreover, his writings in fiqh and usul witness his achievement in other fields of knowledge and that he had reached the degree of ijtihad. By the way, all of our maraja, they have similar licenses that they get from their teachers, that they have excelled in memorization and narrating hadith, and they have also excelled in the analysis of the hadith to the extent that they're able to derive laws from the ahadith. And this is how they reach ijtihad. So this same criteria that was there during that time, the Ruwat al-Hadith, who were the fuqaha of that time, is still going on up until today. So there is no difference between the jurists and the narrators of hadith. Ruwat al-Hadith and the fuqaha are one. They're the same. They're the same ones. So Zurar ibn A'yan at that time and the Maraja of today is the same. They're going through the same system. Nothing has changed. The system is still intact. It's still the same exact system as was established by the Ahlul Bayt salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhim ajma'in. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, a person might ask, well, if this system was established from that time, and the concept of taqleed and Marji'ia and so on and so forth is established from that time, then why do we see many ahadith, or why do we see some ahadith from the Ahlul Bayt that prohibit taqleed, or that speaks against the concept of taqleed? The answer is taqleed has 3 different meanings. It's not one meaning. There are 3 different meanings. The ban taqleed is different from the taqleed that we're doing nowadays. The taqleed of the maraja. It's that the ban taqleed is not even related to our topic of today. However, some ill-intended people, they use the similarity of the word to be able to attack the concept of taqleed as a whole. Similarly to how the Wahhabis attack us for having a Quran that is different from the Quran that we have. They say we have something that is called Mus'haf Fatima, and that is a different Quran. Why? Because the word Mus'haf is generally used for the Holy Quran. So they say, they have a different Mus'haf. While if you go to Arabic language, Mus'haf is just a bunch of paper that are put together into a book. Mus'haf Fatima, the book of Fatima, doesn't mean anything else other than that. It's not a Quran that is different from the Quran that we have today. Yes, we call this Quran the Mus'haf because it is a number of papers that are put in between the two covers. So it became a book. We also call it Mus'haf, al-Mus'haf al-Sharif. Mus'haf just means a book in Arabic language, not more than that. But the Wahhabis, they were able to attack some of the simple-minded people through this. They say, they call it Mus'haf Fatima, so it's a different Quran. No. Mus'haf Fatima just means the book of Fatima, nothing else. It's not the Holy Quran. So those people, they've also used that term taqleed, and they said that whatever hadith that were against the banned type of taqleed, they also said that this is against the taqleed that we have today. So to be able to understand, we need to look at the three different types of taqleed, or the three meanings of taqleed. The first meaning is taqleed in aqa'id, taqleed in principles of Islam. It is prohibited to do taqleed in issues of aqa'id. I cannot do taqleed to believe in the oneness of Allah or the prophethood of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam or so on. I don't go to a marja and tell him, should I believe in one God or not? Or, is Muhammad Khatamul Anbiya wal Mursaleen or not? These things, you have to believe in it to be able to enter into Islam. You have to do your research. You have to believe in it. You don't follow people in issues of belief, in issues of aqa'id. So the aqa'id, tawheed, adil, nubuwa, imama, ma'ad, so on and so forth. These you have to believe in them. You don't follow. You don't do taqleed in issues of aqa'id. Yes, our ulama, our maraji', they have written books in aqa'id. But this is to guide you, to convince you of the aqa'id, the true beliefs of Islam. So you don't follow a marja'. You don't say, I believe in God because I follow X marja'. No. You have to believe in God based on your own research. You have to believe in the prophethood of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam based on your research. To be able to enter into Islam, that's what you have to believe in. So taqleed in aqa'id, in faith, in beliefs, this is something that is banned. There is another type of taqleed which is called the taqleed of the analogist, or which is the other term for it is qiyas. During the time of our sixth Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq alayhi salam, some who did not follow the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, they used to give fatwa to people, but they didn't follow the Ahlul Bayt. They took their knowledge from elsewhere. Sometimes they would reach to a difficult situation where they do not find a hadith that supports their argument. So what do? They would think for a bit and compare the issue to another ruling which they have a hadith that is based on. And they would say, if we look at it from this side, this ruling is similar to that ruling, so we'll just apply that ruling to that specific case. Qiyas has been refuted by the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. This is against the way of the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. They have spoken against it. And the debates between Imam al-Sadiq and Abu Hanifa are many. You can refer to them, where he refuted qiyas as a whole. The reason is because who said that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made a specific hukum to a specific situation, that the reason behind that hukum was that specific aspect that he was looking at? Maybe the reason why it was halal or haram was another issue. He was looking at it from one aspect. And the Imam pointed that out to him in many of the debates that went between Imam al-Sadiq and Abu Hanifa. Istihsan is also the act of giving fatwa based on one's taste. This type of taqleed in istihsan and qiyas is also denied. So the two banned types of taqleed, the two wrong types of taqleed, which is taqleed in beliefs, in aqa'id, and the taqleed of the analogist, qiyas and istihsan, those two are banned, and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam have spoke against it. So all the ahadith that speaks against taqleed, it's referring to these two meanings. However, the taqleed that we're talking about is completely different from these two. It's the taqleed of the jurist, which means that you put your religious acts under the responsibility of the faqih, the jurist. Since I'm not specialized in religion, and I have daily concerns, I have questions, who should I ask? Either I go and open up the hundreds of thousands of ahadith and look into them and try to analyze, even though I don't have the qualification, but I try to analyze them and see and then make up a hukum, or I go to someone who did the research, who spent tens of years studying and researching and analyzing the ahadith till he reached to the level of being an expert in that field. This is natural. I have my work 9 to 5. I work. I have my different issues in life, different commitments. I don't have the time to go and look into that detail. I don't have the qualifications in the first place, and after that I don't even have the time to go and do that research. The alim, the marji', he dedicated his life to research in the ahadith of the Ahlul Bayt and analyzing them to be able to give us the answer. So they themselves went and did the research, and I came to load the responsibility of the act upon them. And this is the approved type of taqleed and the natural continuation of the hadith narrators. When the Imam tells his companion to go and give fatwa to people, it means I'm going to ask this companion, the companion gives me the answer, and I will apply. The same thing, those ulama, they've studied till they reach to that level, and I ask them a question, and then they give me the answer, and I take it and go, basically. So the third type of taqleed has nothing to do with the banned type of taqleed that is mentioned in the ahadith. So those who say that Ahlul Bayt have spoken against taqleed, they've spoken against the first two types. Taqleed in principles of faith and taqleed of the analogist, which is qiyas and istihsan. But they did not speak about the approved type, which is the taqleed of the jurist. They were the ones who've established this system and this way. And they've established it, and we have continued on the same path of the Ahlul Bayt throughout all these years, up until today, and inshallah up until the day of the reappearance of the Imam of our time, until the day of judgment, inshallah. May Allah grant us the tawfiq to be of those who remain steadfast on the religion of Islam, and be of those who truly follow the footsteps of Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, and follow the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim as-salam. And may Allah grant us the tawfiq to be amongst the sincere servants and followers and helpers and supporters of the Imam of our time, Imam Sahib al-Asri wa Zaman, with the blessings of Allah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And in these holy nights of the month of Ramadan, let us not forget our deceased family members, our deceased friends, our deceased community members, and all the deceased mu'mineen and mu'minat from the recitation of Surah Al-Fatiha. Before it, aloud salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. Bismillah.